New gear comes out every day. It's really a oversaturation in the market right now. And a lot of that stuff is cheaper, and some of it is even more efficient than the previous models that were more expensive. But where do you draw the line of, do I want to upgrade now, or do I want to wait a couple of generations? And you have the choice of, do I get that older model that was new at one point, or do I get this newer model that's even more of an upgrade than I had before? Welcome back to the Rebel Tech channel. I'm Justin, and in this video we're going to be comparing two Shure microphones, the Shure SM7B and the Shure MV7X. Two broadcast microphones, two studio quality, depending on your stature, meaning if you're a professional studio person or if you're just someone with a home studio and want to get decent audio. Everybody has their level. Everybody has the expectation out of their gear. And for this, it's a matter of your expectation. There are many instances where you can justify getting the cheaper option if it's within your budget, and also if you're not necessarily ready for the more expensive option. But like I was saying in the intro, the more expensive option or the older option, in this case the older option is the more expensive one, can you say I can get something more or more value, which is a totally different conversation, out of the cheaper and newer option? Now what I mean is, the reason why it's a different conversation is because the value, quote unquote, of something is what you get out of it. And if you spend $400 or $500 on a Shure SM7B and the whole setup to go with it, are you getting that value in your content or what you're wanting out of it? As opposed to the Shure MV7X, which I think roughly it's about half, probably a little less, a little more than half the price of the Shure SM7B, especially if you consider the extra costs, which you can put those costs to this as well, because it could use a cloud lifter, but I don't have two, so I just have one, so it's going to this hefty boy here. So without any further ado, let's get into the builds of these and talk about how they're constructed. And they're very similar aesthetically, but they're different in the quality, and you could tell the price definitely reflects that. So with the Shure SM7B, you guys know how I feel about this thing. Incredible build, feels amazing, and it really is a nice looking microphone as well. The full yoke mount is really nice. The rejection and noise, handling noise, is very good as well. I am a huge fan of the XLR port being outside of the body. Just my own personal opinion. If you feel differently, let me know down in the comments. Now, as we move over to the Shure MV7X, the newcomer of this group, I am a big fan of this. I'm a big fan of this concept of, let's make something similar to a known standard and cheaper and make it available to more people. And especially if you were just interested, like me, in an XLR version and didn't want to deal with the USB connectivity and I could get it cheaper, that's even better. So to dive a little bit deeper, the similarities are very obvious. The full yoke mount, obviously different in aesthetics, but it's a full yoke mount. And the little turny knobs to adjust the up and downness, yes, technical term, is pretty much the same concept. Obviously, aesthetically they look different, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same thing. I mentioned in the this one video that, yeah, these turny ones here, I kind of like them a little bit. They're a little bit easier to turn than these. I don't know, they feel better. They feel a little bit more efficient, but that's just my opinion. As far as the XLR port being attached to the butt end, it's acceptable, but I prefer the outside XLR port here. It just seems like it works a little better and it's not restrictive. I don't know. That's just how I feel. So as far as the build is concerned, I'm obviously leaning towards the Shure SM7B, and the main thing that's the reason why is because when I feel this, it's a matter of feel. it just feels better. And it better because it's twice the price, or a little bit more than twice. So consider that when you're really deciding on this. It's not necessarily a big deal because you're getting good microphones regardless, and the build quality is very nice. But by spending that extra money, you are getting a heftier build. With less money, you're getting a lighter build. Let's actually do some handling noise tests. Let's tap the mic stand. It's a regular mic stand with a multi-mount. I put out that video just talking about it. Not necessarily a huge review. I mean, it's just talking about it. I mean, it's not much to review. You put stuff on it. That's pretty much it. But let's tap it. That's the bottom of the mic stand. Top of the mic stand. The mount. Yoke mount on the Shure SM7B. Body. Yoke mount of the MV7X. And the body. Let me know if you notice the difference, and I'll let you know how I feel about it in the outro when I listen to it in post. So the next thing I'm going to get into is Techy Talk. And basically, if you're new here, Techy Talk basically means I'm going to talk about the tech, the specs, and everything that goes into these. I will leave up a graphic comparing the two, and then I will talk about the things that stand out to me. And the last thing in Techy Talk, of course, here is the frequency response curve. And everyone should know that I feel that the frequency response curve is the most important thing about a microphone because it shows how the microphone was tuned. Maybe one day we'll do merch on that one. So the first thing that stands out to me is the sensitivity. 4 decibel difference in favor of the Shure MV7X, meaning that the Shure MV7X is more sensitive. And I noticed that at this point, like when you get to the above 50 decibels of sensitivity, meaning negative, you're going to start getting into that realm of I need a cloud lifter or a very high-end preamp to support the microphone. I'm using the Zoom F6 right now, and it does the job, but I noticed some pressure on the preamps. And when I did my Zoom F6 limiter video, you know what I'm talking about. If you've seen it, let me know. With those tests, I noticed that there was some strain on the preamps because I was doing it without the preamps, without the fed head, I should say. And right now I'm using it. So keep that in mind when you're using these things. You might, when anything that's above 50, you have that chance of overloading, or not necessarily overloading, but straining your preamps. So keep that in mind. Next thing that stands out, the ohms on the impedance is about 100 ohm difference. Obviously, that's the just quality of the microphone that you're seeing there, and it's in favor of the Shure SM7B because it's just better quality. I mean, it's really not a huge deal for most people. Most people are really not going to notice the difference, and especially if you're just streaming with these microphones. And to be honest, if you are streaming with a microphone, I'd lean towards this one because you're going to lose a lot of quality out of the Shure SM7B. If you're just strictly doing stuff online, it's kind of hard to justify getting this one. If you want to splurge, but it's really difficult to justify it if you're just streaming or if you're just making regular content on YouTube because of the compression and all that stuff. It's might not be worth it. And also you save some cash and put it towards something else, maybe an interface as well. So the last thing in Techy Talk is the frequency response. And as far as the numbers are concerned, the difference is 4K on the hertz, meaning that there's a cutoff at 16 kilohertz on the Shure MV7X, and the Shure SM7B goes to 20. They're both start at 50, so that's pretty much even. Now, with the frequency responses and the curve, they're different. So let's dive into what they actually are. So first up, let's talk about the Shure SM7B's low end. And you have a natural curve that's kind of like a low cutoff, but it's not a traditional low cutoff. It's just a low cutoff. If you look at it, it looks like one. With the Shure MV7, you're noticing that it's a more aggressive low cutoff and goes way down there and a little bit more wavy. Then as you move forward into the low mids and into the mids, you start seeing it more wavy and still increasing steadily. So as far as the lows, I will give an edge to the Shure SM7B because it has also that option for the low cutoff as well. Now back to the Shure SM7B. As I was saying, there's a little bit of a dip there as you enter the mids and then starts to flatten out as we go to 1K, 2K. And this is kind of like the high mids and that area there. If you engage the mid boost, it's definitely more aggressive, and there's like a 2 to 3, maybe even 4 at some points decibel increase in those areas. So it's a person-to-person thing, a source-to-source thing when you use it. So be careful and only use it if it's applicable. Moving back to the Shure MV7 with the mids, as I said, it's a nice steady increase in wave. Now, lastly, with the highs, the Shure SM7B has those boosts with the mid boost as well. And then other than that, it is bonkers. It's got a lot of peaks, a lot of valleys, a lot going on, very tuned. But when it's reflected in the tone, it's understandable because it's not like aggressive and it's not... when you look at this frequency response, it might look crazy, but it's not crazy in tone. So on a chart, it's a little bonkers, but when the tone is considered, not so much. Now, on the MV7, it's a little less. It's more appealing, in my opinion. It's definitely more honed in on specific tones, and it makes sense because you don't have that 4K end, that room on the end to mess around with, so they kind of just figured out which is more important for their tuning. Now, of course, this can all be altered in EQ, but naturally, that's what I'm talking about. So when it comes to frequency response on a chart, I don't know how I feel. I lean towards the Shure SM7B on the low end. I lean towards the Shure SM7B on the mids. And the highs go to the MV7. But overall, I guess I got to give it to the SM7B because it's just 2 to 1. So, I mean, it makes sense. But I'm kind of hesitant on that because overall, I'm kind of like on the fence. On a chart, obviously. All right, next up, noise test and off-axis rejection in the studio. Okay, weird camera angle, I know, but there's a reason and a method to my madness. The B camera was set up that way, and I didn't feel like messing around with it. Noise test first, and then a distance test, and then off-axis, like I said. Okay, I'm going to be quiet. Okay, so some things you may notice. A dehumidifier in the other room and possibly a fan. I don't know. I can't really tell from here. But definitely the dehumidifier. So I'm going to back up a bit. Okay, I'm about 2 feet away from the fronts of the microphones, and this is going to be your distance test in the studio here. I definitely treated it a little bit more. I obviously flipped the room, and we are facing towards my desk now, which now I'm using the booth walls as kind of like a suppression off that wall. I don't know how much it makes a difference, but I had a couple of tests that really made significant changes in the quality. All right, off-axis 90-degree test right here on the Shure SM7B side, stage right, I think. I need to learn that from the job that I didn't do. So this is going to be your off-axis rejection test, 90 degrees. They're both cardioid polar patterns, so they should have some rejection on the 90s. Now on the Shure MV7 side, about a foot away from the Shure MV7, and I'm facing a wall with a lot more treatment. I have a curtain and 2 moving blankets on the walls there, so it's probably significantly better than I had it before. And I'm really curious to listen to it. This is the first one I'm doing in this specific setup, so I'm very excited to do these comparisons and maybe readdress some of the off-axis stuff. Okay, about 2 feet away from the rears of the microphones, this is your 180-degree off-axis rejection test. And this is the studio here, the Rebel Tech studio. Now it's 2022. Technically, I'm recording this in 2021. If you saw my end-of-year video, I said that I'm just basically building up an archive and letting you guys know that I'm going to be editing a lot in the end of 2021 so that I can keep up with content while I'm working. Now to the booth. Okay, in the booth right now with the Shure MV7X and the Shure SM7B. A comparison that a lot of people have been interested in, thinking that can I just get the Shure MV7X and pretty much get a Shure SM7B? Now, there are some people that could make it sound pretty close to it, but in my opinion, it's tough. It really is. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's tough. It's really one of those things that if you have a good ear for it, you can get pretty close. It's very difficult to get exact, but considering the fact that they're both the same brand, made by the same company, and also this one was kind of like had this one in mind, you can make it work. Now, the other thing is, are people going to notice it? With the compression and everything online, are you really going to notice it? Now, of course, if you're using this for a podcast or like some type of audio drama or something like that, maybe it might be more important to you to have a higher end microphone like the Shure SM7B. All things to consider. Depends on the application. Nowadays, more so than anything, I might be doing a video covering what is important when deciding on a microphone, that kind of thing. Like, the number one thing nowadays is probably, what are you making? Because I answer that question so much, like, what microphone should I get? And the question that always comes up is, what are you making? And that's really it. Switching over to the Shure SM7B, and I gotta admit, I don't have the FET head on right now because I've been testing it out without it and seeing how these preamps act and just giving it a little bit of different taste. I definitely noticed that it's not as clean, meaning that the FET head that I have takes a lot of the pressure off of the preamp. So keep that in mind when you get the Shure SM7B or something that requires a lot of gain. A lot of gain usually means 45 and up. If it needs 45 decibels or higher, consider getting one. Maybe 50 to 55. I'll redact that. I'll just go 50, 55, or higher if it needs more than that to be good. And at that point, you're getting to a hairy situation where the preamps are going to get hissy and be a little noisy. So let's do a plosive test. All right, MV7X. SM7B. Not that bad. This one does pretty good. This one, it's okay. So the overall tones, there's something about the tone about the Shure SM7B that I'm just partial to. I love the way that it leaves like that little resonance down there, and it's nice. I really like the way this one sounds. Now for a quick test, just to make sure that no one yells at me. I know that people like to complain. Let's switch on some of these and let you know how it sounds, comparatively speaking. Okay, Shure SM7B has the low cutoff on, and it's roughly around 200 hertz that it's rolling off. It's a little aggressive for my taste, but that's the way it is. And if we compare it to the Shure MV7X, you're going to notice that the low end is there. And it's definitely, when you compare it, it's not one of the things that, depending on the source, depending on what you're doing, everything is different. So keep that in mind. All right, so the mid boost is on right now, and you notice, it's really, I'm calling it a mid boost now because it really is a mid boost. I mean, it's mid and mid high and highs. It's just boost up into the ether. It's just 2 to 3, I think it was, decibels of boost in that area. It's really weird, and it's one of those things that it's tough. It's tough to find a good application for it, at least in my opinion. There's plenty of times where you might consider it, but it's tough. MV7X, I definitely like this one better with this configuration. So let's do the one last thing with both of them on. All right, so both of them are on right now, and you got more of a old school radio sound. And it's just squishing it and then just going that's what it's doing with the frequency response curve in the way that I see it on a chart. So if you take a line and you just and that kind of thing. You know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. Now to the Shure MV7X. This is what it's going to sound like, and I prefer the natural tone of this compared to this. And then the MV7X, I think the only thing that may have a fighting chance is just the low cutoff. But that's just my opinion. Next up, Untreated room, and see how these things fare in a more relatable room to you guys. All right, this is the big All-Facts rejection test between the big brother and the little brother of the Shure SM7B and the Shure MV7X. Let's do some tests in my untreated room, my quote-unquote untreated room. This is my more relative room to you guys, to let you know that this is what it's going to sound like in a room that's not necessarily treated, but it also has a lot of stuff in it, so it's like kind of treated in a way. So very, very relative to people's bedrooms or something like this. This is my old bedroom, 10 by 10, roughly 10-foot ceiling, or maybe less, a little more. I don't know. Area rug over a wood floor as well. And there are a couple windows, and just for the context of All-Facts rejection. Now, I've been talking about 2-3 inches away from these microphones, and I'm going to back up a bit and do the other tests. All right, now I'm about a foot away from the fronts of these microphones. Remember, cardioid on both of them. This is what it's going to sound like in the untreated room. And let me know what you think on the rejection of further back. Maybe a little more noise on the MV7X, but I can't really tell. I got to listen to it in post and let you know for sure. No pun intended. And now we're going to do the 90-degree test, and let's see how it reacts, or they react. All right, 90-degree test, speaking towards the wall with the 2 windows. This is the All-Facts rejection test in the untreated room. Roughly about 90 degrees, maybe now it's about 90 degrees. So let me know what you think down in the comments on the 2 cardioid polar patterns here and how they reject noise. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn them around and get the 180-degree rejection test. All right, 180-degree test. Speaking about 2 feet away from the rears of the microphones, still speaking towards that wall with the windows, and this is going to be your All-Facts rejection in the untreated room. Let me know what you think. They're both cardioid, and they should have some decent rejection in the rear. You're probably hearing some reflections off those windows, but it's mostly reflection and less so my voice and the source of my mouth. Okay, so let's go down to the studio and I'll give you my impressions after I've listened to it in post, because it makes a big difference of listening to it in post, because when you're in the booth and you're listening to it live, it's a little tough to understand because of the reverberations around your head. So let's see how they are, and I'm pretty sure where I'm leaning on this one, but I could be surprised. Okay, so that is it. That is the comparison between the Shure MV7 and the Shure SM7B. It's not much of a surprise that I choose the Shure SM7B over the Shure MV7, but I will say that in certain circumstances, in certain use cases, the Shure MV7 is a much better choice, mainly because this is overkill. You don't need this microphone. Another reason why it could be a better option is if you're not really looking for that really dark tone. Some people's voices don't work with the Shure SM7B. But specifically, let's go into some details. This video is starting to get long, so let's go into a little bit of details. I noticed when I didn't have the FET head on the Shure SM7B, the preamps on this device, the F6, almost forgot that, they were definitely strained, and I noticed some noise, some hiss from there. And now the FET head is on again, and at the beginning of the video in the studio part, it was on there as well, and I noticed a major difference in quality. And the preamps on these are very good, but when they start getting that extra bit of gain that's needed, they definitely start to hiss. The next thing is plosive rejection. It's really like a give and take kind of thing. If you want to get some good plosive rejection, the Shure SM7B definitely has great plosive rejection, especially with the provided one and even the big one. But the problem is the big one affects the tone a lot. When you throw this one on, the Shure MV7, it certainly helps, but it does affect the tone as well. So keep that in mind and know that it's going to affect it one way or another. Depending on the person, depending on the source, as I always say, will determine how drastic it is in certain categories, in certain ranges. I have a video out, gonna be out, about frequency response curves and how to read them and how to understand it, translating the chart to audible sound, like your eyes to your ears kind of thing. So I'm very excited to share that one with all of you. And one more thing. Overall tone, I definitely noticed that a brighter tone, little bit of brighter tone on the MV7X, and obviously the dark tone here. You notice that on the frequency response, you're definitely drastic on that high end with the cutoff. But I don't think it's like enough to really annoy me. Like the AT2040 is one that's really drastic, and I think it's even more so than the chart says and the numbers say, but I'll get into that in that video, that comparison as well. And that all being said, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you liked the video, please hit the like button down below. It'd be greatly appreciated. It helps this video, helps this channel get out to more people, and really builds this community. And I'm really proud of all you guys for being very positive and just being nice. I really do appreciate that. That does mean a lot. And if you have any questions, comments, or anything whatsoever, please leave it down in the comments section. I'll answer questions and have conversations. I'm really interested in having discussions and conversations. Just make sure you keep it constructive and nice and be a positive community. And if you want to join my Discord, there are a couple people out there. I think it's like around 10 people out there on the Discord right now. And you want to discuss things further, if you want to have some file sharing going on or whatever it is, please join that. I might not be available to help you out, or I might not have all the answers. So there are other people in there as well to help out. So if you're interested in that, go join that. I think it's on the banner somewhere on the bottom right corner and in the description as well. And same rules apply. Be nice, constructive discussions, not arguments. And last but certainly not least, if you like my vibe around here, please consider subscribing. It's a great community, as I said. Everyone's really nice, and we've done a good job. We're keeping it up. And we're looking for that next milestone, 2K. Hoping to do it sometime soon. And if you have anybody that you know that is interested in this kind of stuff, into gear, tech, mostly microphones, let them know. And send them my way. One last thing, and if Sean watches this, thanks for the hat. I really appreciate it. This is my buddy Sean from Missouri, and he is a video producer and does it professionally and does a bunch of client work and things like that. And this is his production company merch. He sent me a hat, which is really cool. And if you're interested in that, I will leave links to his channel down below. I think he has the merch on his channel as well, so I'll just send his channel down in the description. Enough babbling from me. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. And the good thing is the new he came out of nowhere. Oh my god, it was like David Copperfield. That active camo was bonkers.